The reading I'm reflecting on today is Luke chapter 18, verses 1 to 14. A passage that contains two parables. The first, the parable of the persistent widow. Then Jesus told his disciples a parable to show them that they should always pray and not give up. He said, "In a certain town there was a judge who neither feared God nor cared what people thought. And there was a widow in that town who kept coming to him with a plea, 'Grant me justice against my adversary.' For some time he refused, but finally he said to himself, 'Even though I don't fear God or care what people think, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will see that she gets justice so that she won't eventually come and attack me.' And the Lord said, 'Listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he will see that they get justice, and quickly. However, when the Son of Man comes to earth, will he find faith?' And the second parable is the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector. To some who were confident of their own righteousness and looked down on everyone else, Jesus told this parable. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed, 'God, I thank you that I am not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even this tax collector. I fast twice a week and give 1/10 of all I get.' But the tax collector stood at a distance. He would not even look up to heaven, but beat his breast and said, 'God, have mercy on me, a sinner.' I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who are humble will be exalted." When I've been reflecting on these passages, I've come to think about the second parable first. I see a lot of myself in the tax collector. It's easy to see that role and be comfortable in the fallibility and the failing and the readiness that he had to simply throw himself on the mercy of God. And I see very little of myself in the Pharisee. Pharisee is often a victim in Jesus' parables, and I doubt any of us would address God in the super confident, arrogant terms of the Pharisee in this story. And so in a way, it's easy to avoid thinking about that character, or that the character has anything to teach us or me. And also in that way, the parable is comforting, because thinking of ourselves as the tax collector is also to know that the tax collector was the downtrodden hero of the story, as they so often were with Jesus, who went home justified by God. Well, as I've reflected on this passage, I thought there is perhaps something to be learned from the Pharisee in my prayer life. The parable, of course, was an extreme example, the Pharisee and his overconfidence. I trust and pray that I am not like that, and I don't believe I am. But when I look at my prayer life, I can see that when I am in trouble, when times are difficult, or my work is hard, well then I am often praying, in the morning and at the night, and earnestly praying, always in truth, praying about a number of things and other people first, but also ultimately for myself and for God's help. And when things in my life are easier, when things are fine, then prayer not so much, prayer less. Not overconfident like the Pharisee. When I was trying to think of the right word, was it lazy, casual? But no, I think the word I was searching for was complacency, as if when things in my life are okay, I don't really need to talk to God. I'm okay, the world's okay. I don't see so readily my dependence on him in the same way. I have been working a lot less during lockdown. I've had more time to myself, but I regret that I haven't spent more of it in prayer. It's been an easy time with less stress from work. And I think this parable is a warning in that way. Of course, not to be like the Pharisee and talk to God that way, but also to persist and not be complacent and think that I only need to talk to God when I think I need him, but rather to talk to God in prayer all the time, because whether I think it or not, I always need him, and so does the world. And that persistence, of course, is a theme in the first parable. I've always found the image of the unjust judge quite amusing, working as a barrister. And I'm sure I've never been in front of a judge who I've thought was unjust. The first verses of the parable are an encouragement to pray, because God will be just and just more quickly. And of course, prayer is often and can be answered quickly. And it's fine when that happens. But we all know that prayer is not always answered quickly. And what about when it isn't? Well, I think the challenge and reassurance about that situation is in the last verse, when the parable talks of the Son of Man coming to earth and asking whether he'll find faith. I think that persistent prayer is a true act of faith, a deepening faith. To keep going, to keep praying when it seems the answer isn't coming. To keep going, to keep praying when there seems to be no hope. That is faith. The belief that God can change even the worst of situations. And the belief that God will change the problem even when there seems to be no answer. And there are many examples of that in the Bible where persistence has paid off. Prayer, faith, tested, refined, improved. I'm sure these two parables then are telling me that I can deepen my faith by persevering in prayer, so that when we meet, when I meet the Lord, he'll find that faith in me. And when he hears my prayers, he'll hear that faith. Amen. Dear God, I pray that you would encourage and strengthen my prayer life. Let me come to you always as the source of my existence, in good times and bad, seeking your good gifts and guidance. Amen.